making headlines. The president calls for the relocation of global funds towards climate adaptation at the World Leaders Climate Action Summit. Maldives and Bhutan hold significant talks pertaining to the measures which can be implemented to mitigate the impacts of climate change. And the parliament approves the amendment proposed to the Tobacco Control Act, which seeks to ban the use and import of vapes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to PSM News in English with me, Hafiz Abdul Sattar. And now the news in detail. President Dr. Mohamed Muiz has called for the relocation of global funds towards climate adaptation at the World Leaders Climate Action Forum.
Speaking at the plenary of the COP29, President Dr. Mohamed Muiz made a plea for a global reorientation of financial priorities, urging leaders to divert resources from warfare to climate action. Addressing attendees in Azerbaijan, he emphasized the urgent need for a financial system that supports the survival and resilience of vulnerable nations like the Maldives. President Dr. Muiz remarked that funds are flowing freely to wage in war, but scrutinized when it's for climate adaptation. He called for a reprioritization of global financial commitments, pointing out the glaring inconsistency in how funds are distributed in response to global threats.
As we approach the next round of nationally determined contributions, developed nations must increase their ambition to close the emissions and finance gap and align with the 1.5-degree goal. Mr. President, as we look around the globe, we see funds flowing freely to wage war, but scrutinized when it's for climate adaptation. We need to reprioritize.
For the Maldives and many other small island developing states, the climate crisis is an existential threat that demands immediate, large-scale action. Reflecting on the resilience of Maldives, President said that the Maldives is often portrayed as vulnerable, but its story is one of extraordinary fortitude and a firm belief in the power of collective action. He highlighted that the Maldives' identity is deeply intertwined with its environment and the ocean, which his administration sees as sacred to protect.
We are a nation of extraordinary fortitude. We speak not from desperation, but from a belief in the power of collective action. Our story is not of fragility, it is a testament to resilience, leadership, and international cooperation. Since hosting the first Small States Conference 35 years ago, we have called for stronger climate action. Our call has not changed, our course has not strayed. Because for us, the environment and the ocean are more than resources. They are our cultural identity. Their protection remains our sacred duty.
The president outlined his vision for a sustainable future, detailing recent steps the Maldives has taken to enhance climate resilience. He also elaborating on new green initiatives, food security measures, and economic diversification efforts. He noted this blueprint, part of the Maldives' broader 20-year vision, aims to create a climate-resilient, developed nation by 2040. However, he noted that the ambitions of nations like the Maldives are constrained by limited finances. He urged leaders to ensure that the new climate finance goal matches the unprecedented scale of the climate crisis.
And now we'll take a short break for Isha prayers. Stay tuned.
Minivan kamuge radrongu aundu damani vara falakose. E radronguge eteriyaka hama evves bayaka vanumuge hagge nonnane ekankurmuge fursate hama hila iradu kaviya nudename eterega tibi bayku viya iradu kaviya beru kuraname amala baha iradu kaviya aunduge abadus dimawana.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله لا إله إلا الله اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة والدرجة الرفيعة وبعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته وارزقنا شفاعته برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.
ඔක්කො විස්නාවේ මේ zebra cross මිහුණනි හදාප කමකු එක්තාග ලවකියා එතාග ඩාන්ස් කො එතා කංකං කරන් හදාපුන්න තනෙන්න තංකොලෙන් අවසවස් කොල්ලාව රීච්චන් හිඟාලා හදියාම දෙපරාතු ගොන්න බස්තකා කාර්තකා සායකොතකා ඉවස් තන්තන මුහිම කො දතුරතක නිකුමෙවලේ බයි දෝ हम ला कुरीत बारंग आसाम zebra cross मच्छंगरी मडु जस्सागे इतुरु मीहुन्न गुळाගෙන් වාහකත දෙක්කම එකංකම් කරන් හදාපුන්න තනෙන්න ඕනේ කොක්කො එහෙම මේ අබදස් කොක්කො මෙන් කාර මිබරනි හුරියා බේෆුල් මෙස් හදාන් කරම්බි zebra cross මතීග මඩුනු කුරාන් එබ්බස් කමෙක් කුරාන් අවසවස් කුන් දෙපරාතු ගෙච්චි මඩු කොෆවිජ රීච් cross කොල්ලාරේ විස්නාදන් උල්නීම බරාබර වා
Welcome back to PSL News in English, and now we'll continue with the news. President Dr. Mohamed Muiz has participated in the opening session of the World Leaders Climate Action Summit at the 29th conference of the parties COP29 of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. This year's theme for COP29 is In Solidarity for a Green World. The summit presents a significant opportunity for the Maldives to share its climate change resilience initiatives and the efforts asserted to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. During the conference, President Dr. Muiz will continue to advocate on addressing the challenges faced by small island developing states, SIDS. In the COP28 held last year, the President outlined his vision for a climate-resilient Maldives, introduced an ambitious worldwide plan to plant 5 million trees and committed to generate 33% of the country's electricity from renewable sources within 5 years. The agenda at COP29 will address key priorities, including setting a new collective financial goal, strengthening international collaboration, and removing obstacles to the development of nationally determined contributions, NDCs. Prior to the opening session, President Dr. Muiz joined other global leaders for a group photo symbolizing unity in their efforts to address climate change. Saudi Fund for Development SFD has reaffirmed its steadfast commitment to support the Maldives' developmental initiatives. It expressed its commitment during a meeting held between President Dr. Mohamed Muiz and the Chief Executive Officer CEO of the SDF, Sultan Abdul Rahman Al Marshad. The discussions took place on the sidelines of the joint Arab-Islamic Extraordinary Summit in Riyadh. The discussions between the Maldives and SDF primarily focused on expanding the scope of collaboration and fostering new avenues for partnerships. Both leaders reviewed the progress of ongoing key projects in the Maldives supported by the fund, such as the expansion of Velana International Airport, VIA, other infrastructure and fisheries sector projects. They also discussed on the completion of the projects expeditiously, underscoring their mutual dedication to driving impactful developmental outcomes. The meeting concluded with a commitment to bolster cooperation further, reinforcing the strong ties between the Maldives and the SFD as they work towards shared economic and developmental goals. Saudi Fund for Development plays a vital role in the development of the Maldives. It has invested in key developmental projects, contributed towards human development, and has provided assistance to enhance the health and education sector. Maldives and Bhutan have held significant talks pertaining to the measures which can be implemented to mitigate the impacts of climate change. The discussions were held between President Dr. Mohamed Muiz and the Prime Minister of Bhutan, Tshering Togbe, on the sidelines of the 29th Conference of the Parties, COP29, of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change.
The discussion centered on addressing the negative impacts of climate change and mutual cooperation. During the meeting, President Dr. Muiz emphasized the enduring partnership between the Maldives and Bhutan, despite the geographical differences between the two nations. The President shed light on common threats of climate change, including the challenges of glacial melting and rising sea levels. He further commended Bhutan's status as the world's first carbon-negative country, recognizing Bhutan's innovative initiatives to address climate impacts. Meanwhile, Prime Minister of Bhutan expressed his commitment to collaborate on amplifying the voices on climate change issues. Lauding President Dr. Muiz's efforts to address climate change, the Prime Minister shared some of Bhutan's successful initiatives, underscoring the importance of countries taking greater responsibility for climate impacts. He also highlighted the need for collaboration among vulnerable nations to ensure stronger commitments from wealthier countries. Concluding the meeting, both leaders agreed to continue sharing expertise, exchanging best practices, and strengthening their partnership on climate resilience. They also discussed opportunities for further cooperation in investment and enhancing bilateral relations.
President Dr. Mohamed Muiz has announced plans to officially open Dharmawanta Hospital on November 16th after equipping it with facilities required to transform the hospital into a tertiary hospital. He made the remarks during the ceremony held to commemorate the Republic Day of Maldives.
Dharmawanta Hospital was established on the land plot next to Indira Gandhi Memorial Hospital IGMH during the tenure of former President Yamin Abdul Gayoom. However, the hospital was not put into operations effectively during the past 5 years, with various floors of the hospital utilized for different purposes. This resulted into machineries becoming unusable, and the government incurred high costs for repairment purposes. Therefore, the government has decided to officially inaugurate Dharmawantha Hospital after upgrading it to provide all services obtained from a tertiary hospital. In his address, President Dr. Muiz reaffirmed his commitment to ensure that Dharmawantha Hospital is equipped with the necessary facilities and transform it to a tertiary hospital. Additionally, the President outlined plans to upgrade Hurumale Hospital, which is also set to become a tertiary level hospital by next week. The government is working to develop Hurumale Hospital to feature 4 operation theatres, a neonatal intensive care unit with a bed capacity of 14 beds, and an intensive care unit with a bed capacity of 10 beds.
Parliament has approved the amendment proposed to the Tobacco Control Act, which seeks to ban the use and import of vapes. The bill was passed unanimously with 54 votes in favour. The amendment to the Tobacco Control Act was introduced by parliamentarian Ahmad Aifan on January 23rd. This amendment on October 23rd. This amendment aims to prohibit the use and sale of vapes while instituting stringent measures against violators.
Under the proposed amendments, the sale of tobacco products to individuals under the age of 21 will be prohibited, along with any participation in such sales. Additionally, retailers will be required to display warnings at points of sale. Currently, the minimum age for selling tobacco products is set at 18 years. The amendment further stipulates that the advertisement, public display and transportation of tobacco products in public view will be prohibited in the Maldives. The manufacture of tobacco and any tobacco-related products will also be prohibited. Moreover, the proposed amendment prohibits the import, sale, free distribution, and the use of vaping devices such as e-cigarettes. Should such items be imported into the Maldives, a fine of $3,257 will be levied, along with a fine of $651 for each individual item. The bill specifies a fine of $1,302 for selling any type of vaping device and a fine of $651 for each item sold. Additionally, a fine of $325.75 will be imposed for the use of any vaping device. Furthermore, any individual who sells or distributes a vaping device to a minor will face a fine of $3,257 in addition to penalties for the sale and distribution of such devices. Under this amendment, all individuals engaged in the import, export, and sale of tobacco products, both in bulk and individually, will be required to obtain a special license, which will not be granted for tobacco-related businesses alone. The bill was reviewed by the Parliamentary Committee on Social Affairs, which approved the amendment to the Tobacco Control Act after introducing 2 additional amendments to the bill. Following the approval of the Parliament, the amendment will come into effect on November 15th after President Dr. Mohammad Muiz ratifies the bill.
Ministry of Finance has reported a progress in the state revenue generated compared to last year.
According to the latest weekly fiscal report published by the Ministry of Finance, the state revenue stood at $1.89 billion as of October 31st. This is an increase of 1.5% compared to the $1.85 billion generated last year during the constituting period. The report indicated that this year's state revenue of $1.89 billion includes $1.45 billion as tax revenue, $402 million as non-tax revenue, and $36.6 million as financial assistance. The revenue generated through tax primarily includes import duty, business profit tax (BPT), and goods and services tax (GST). As such, the government collected $169 million as import duty, $370 million as BPT, $772 million as GST, $57.1 million as green tax, and $60.3 million as airport services charge and departure tax. Furthermore, the statistics show that the state expenditures during the last 10 months stood at $2.67 billion. This includes $1.81 million as recurrent expenses and $720 million as capital expenditures. Of the $1.81 million incurred as recurrent expenses, $726 million was spent as salaries and wages, while $1.07 million contributed to administrative costs. Meanwhile, the capital expenditures were mainly the costs incurred for infrastructure developmental initiatives.
Qatar Financial Center QFC has announced the decision to provide assistance to the Maldives International Financial Services Authority (MIFSA), which is under development. The Ministry of Economic Development and Trade have entered an agreement with QFC regarding this decision. The Economic Ministry has underlined the pivotal role of this agreement in capacity building and attaining important information required to establish a financial institution in the Maldives. It noted that the agreement will facilitate in accessing information regarding the operational strategies and financial management techniques utilized by developed countries. It will also serve as an opportunity to foster relations with other financial institutions, financial regulators and legal authorities. Regarding the agreement, Minister of Economic Development and Trade, Mohammed Said, has stated that this initiative aligns with the vision of President Dr. Mohamed Moise. He expressed confidence that QFC will provide significant assistance to establish the financial institution. President Dr. Moise decided to relocate the fuel storage in Funadu in Kaf Atoll to Margirifal, develop a special economic zone in Funadu, and transform the island into a financial hub. He announced the decision to establish the International Financial Services Authority earlier this year. Asian Development Bank ADB has granted a financing package to the Maldives worth $21 million aimed at enhancing the disaster management efforts and food security concerns due to climate change. The bank announced that $4 million of the package is issued as a loan, while $17.95 million is a grant provided by the bank. ADB stated that the financial assistance provided will support the Maldives in enhancing the strengthening and the disaster prevention and management efforts and in achieving food security. This includes upgrading and modernizing the equipment in the Maldives Meteorological Services Met Office, installing an early warning system in Male and Addo City, and installing a storm water drainage system in Kuludufushi City. Furthermore, climate-smart urban perming equipment will be introduced to the Maldives, and residents from Halif Atoll and Addo City will be familiarized with the equipment under this financial assistance. Asian stocks tumbled on Tuesday, dragged by Chinese markets and cheap shares as investors worried about U.S. President-elect Donald Trump's policies, while Bitcoin hit a record peak on bets on assets that are set to benefit from the new administration.
Investors anticipate Trump's second four-year term in office will bring equities boost in tax cuts and looser regulations, lifting the world's biggest and best-known cryptocurrency Bitcoin to an all-time high of $89,637. But the threat of possible tariffs from the new White House administration has put the euro and China's yuan under pressure. The single currency touched a near 7-month nadir of $1.0687 overnight and was last at $1.064075, while the onshore yuan slipped to an over 3.5-month low. The dollar, on the other hand, is expected to benefit from some of the policies that will likely keep U.S. interest rates relatively higher for longer. The dollar index, which measures the greenback versus 6 peers, was at 105.59, just shy of the 4-month high hit on Monday. MSCI's broadest index of Asia-Pacific, shares outside Japan, was down 1.7% to its lowest since September 25th, with Taiwan shares sliding over 2% and South Korean stocks 1% lower. Chip stocks in the region have been reeling this week after Reuters reported that the U.S. ordered Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company to hold shipments of advanced chips to Chinese customers that are often used in AI applications. Chinese shares slid while Hong Kong stocks stumbled 2.65%. Sentiment remained largely downbeat after Beijing's latest stimulus package failed to deliver the direct spending aimed at consumers that investors have been expecting. Analysts also pointed to reports of Trump tapping U.S. Senator Marco Rubio to be his Secretary of State, arguably the most hawkish option.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said that he is set to announce ambitious emissions cut goals at the COP29 UN Climate Summit in Baku, Azerbaijan.
Speaking to the media on the sidelines of the summit, Starmer said he would be talking about the UK's pledge to cut emissions by 81% by 2035 compared to 1990 levels and emphasized that it's not about telling people how to live their lives.
I accept it's difficult target. It's an achievable target, but it's not about telling people how to live their lives. I'm not interested in that. I am interested in making sure that their energy bills are stable, that we've got energy independence, and that we also, along the way, pick up the next generation of jobs, which will be measured across the United Kingdom, good, well-paid jobs in every community. I'm centrally and very interested in that.
Starmer added that €1 billion, about $1.28 billion, order for blades for offshore wind turbines to be manufactured in Hull has also been secured.
I think it's very important for the United Kingdom to show leadership on the climate challenge. It's a very important challenge of our time. It's also, I've long believed, the single biggest opportunity for the next generation of jobs, and that's demonstrated in the fact that this morning here at COP, I'm announcing a £1 billion order for blades for offshore wind, which will be jobs in Hull.
Earlier, Starmer attended and delivered remarks at a high-level event hosted by the Climate Investment Fund's CIF. World leaders are speaking at the US Climate Summit in Baku, where United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has told them to pay up to prevent climate-led humanitarian disasters.
India's singular focus over the next 2 months is on winning the 5-match series in Australia, and the players will not be distracted by the race to reach the World Test Championship WTC final, head coach Gautam Gambhir said on Monday.
India were in pole position to mark next year's WTC final until a 3-0 whitewash by New Zealand earlier this month allowed Australia to leapfrog them. Captain Rohit Sharma must now guide his side to a 4-0 win in Australia to guarantee a spot in the final, though their path could be easier depending on the results of other series.
Look, honestly, we are not even looking what's going to happen in the World Test Championship, whether we're going to qualify. Every series is important. As simple as it can get. When you play for your country, when you represent your country, every series is important, irrespective of what has happened in the past. For us, I think two good teams playing against each other, and obviously we're absolutely keen to go out there and perform and try and win the series.
India prevailed in their last 2 Australia tours, but their batting looks less than formidable this time as they look to retain the Border Gavaskar Trophy. The skipper is likely to miss the opening test in Perth beginning on November 22nd to attend the birth of his second child, while stalwart Virat Kohli has been out of form. The absence of the injured Mohammad Shami will also increase the workload on pace spearhead Jasprit Bumrah, who will captain India should Rohit miss the match. Former India opener Gambhir hinted that Rahul's 53 test experience and his ability to bat practically anywhere in the order could tilt the decision in his favour ahead of the uncapped Iswaran. Gambhir also hit back at Australian head coach for his recent remarks on Kohli and said Ponting should think about Australian cricket, adding that he has no concerns about the ace batter and captain Rohit Sharma's form.
And that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching. Wish you all a very pleasant time ahead. Coach Nagani.